Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports on the AJN Network. Monday, January 8th, and we're happy to be back in studio. Frank Granito alongside Kevin Coleman. A big day coming up. We've got Dave Rudin of the Rudin Report joining us. Athlete of the Week nominees, our first ones of the winter season. And of course, we'll look back on a weekend of games that were postponed from last Thursday and Friday, getting played over on Saturday. Hope you got to enjoy the weekend, Kev, but really now we're about to go full swing in this month with our coverage of the winter sports season.
And it really starts tomorrow night. We get to see the Richfield Tigers take on the Danbury Hatters in what's an old school rivalry, but you're going to see two teams who are playing especially well here to start off the basketball season. How about the Danbury Hatters? Undefeated so far, 6-0 overall, undefeated in the conference. So a big matchup at RHS tomorrow night. Tigers Den's going to be loud tomorrow night.
I think it's a Hatters team right now with something to prove. When you look back at last season, really probably believe they should have been able to move on to that FCX championship. Ultimately can't get that far. And on the other side, this is a Ridgefield basketball team that has retooled and is finding ways to win again. And I mean, they clawed their way to a victory on Saturday over Trinity Catholic, 64-63 in overtime. And for more on that game and the early part of the FCX basketball season, let's welcome in now Dave Rudin of the Rudin Report. Dave, how are you? Happy to have you on. Hopefully you enjoyed the holidays and the new year, and we're ready to get going with this basketball and winter season across the board here.
Gentlemen, how you doing? It's good talking to you again, and quickly, congratulations. Frank told me earlier you won the Connecticut Soccer Coaches Association Media Recognition Award, and I actually was fortunate enough to win it last year, so well-deserved on your part. Glad to see that the FCX, that doesn't necessarily get recognition statewide, is doing so 2 years in a row. And Kevin, see what happens when Frank carries you with soccer.
Dave,
how
thank
good
you.
things turn out.
Kevin has not been guaranteed a spot at that dinner yet, so we're going to tread lightly there, Kev. But I will allow you to respond.
Dave, I'd like to think that it was me who got the award. I don't know about Frank. I think he's still got a little bit of a learning curve in the game of soccer. I'm just messing around, but we do appreciate that. Thank you. We're very honored, and a great FCX season in soccer this year.
Very esteemed company to be in as well, Dave, joining you with that award. But let's talk a little bit now about anything but soccer, and I'll focus in on that Trinity Ridgefield basketball game from this past weekend. Dave, a lot of people expecting Trinity to be the early favorite in the conference this year, but they can't quite get over the hump of the defending champion at home. 64-63, the Tigers win in overtime. What were your initial takeaways from that game?
Number one, from a Trinity standpoint, this Trinity basketball team is so similar to last year. When they're all on the same page, when they're playing together, when they're playing smart, when the chemistry is good, I think if every team in the league played their best game, I think Trinity would win the championship. The problem is there's too many times when they're not on the same page, when the chemistry isn't good, and that's when Trinity tends to struggle. The loss to Ridgefield, I think, was a little less chemistry issue and more turnovers, especially off inbounds plays late in the game. Contavio Dutrell getting injured with a hand, hurt his hand, cut it on the backboard, and he had to leave the game in the third quarter, and that started Ridgefield's rally from a 12-point deficit. And they also were 2 of 6 from the foul line down the stretch. So from a Trinity perspective, that was my impression. It was the second time I've seen them. But that doesn't take away at all from Ridgefield. Ridgefield's stock has risen. I thought Ridgefield was going to be a good team to begin with. A lot of people thought the Tigers lost too much, and they were going to be an upper echelon team, but not necessarily a title contender. But Brendan McNamara, I think, is one of the 3 best players in the league right now. He was fantastic. He scored 29 points. I saw the game against Stanford on Tuesday, and Stanford had no one who could stop him. But I really think what's making Ridgefield special so far has been the play of Alex Price and James St. Pierre on the outside. They're opening up the court with their perimeter shooting, and that makes it a lot easier for McNamara, who actually is a good three-point shooter too, to do his thing inside. And Ridgefield's playing well right now without their starting point guard, Garrity, who's going to be out at least until midseason with a broken thumb. So if they can keep doing what they're doing, and another guy who's an unsung hero is our friend Jackson Mitchell, the football player. And, he's just a big body that bangs around inside, and he's actually the player who scored the tying basket to force overtime with a second to go on Saturday. So that was a really good road win for Ridgefield, coming from 12 points down at the end of the third quarter.
And Dave, you mentioned how Alex Price has been terrific so far this year, and James St. Pierre as well from Beyond the Arc. You look back at that Stanford game last week. Alex Price struggled in that game, and you look at what you mentioned. You put out a great article from that game on Saturday. You mentioned how Alex struggled, even from not just from the three-point land, but from inside as well. Shots were not falling. But a basketball philosophy is shooters have to keep shooting, and that's what Brendan McNamara really emphasized, and Coach McClellan kept emphasizing is Alex, keep shooting, and that's what he did on Saturday. He ended up having 19 points, a great game for him. How important is it not only for Alex Price to play well, James St. Pierre, but Jackson Mitchell down low? This team carries a lot of confidence just because they won that FCX championship last year. How much of a confidence booster, though, is it after a win like this against a Trinity team who a lot of people, early season, that was a favorite for a lot of people?
I think it's got to be a huge confidence booster for them, and I don't think this is a team lacking for confidence to begin with. I think general makeup of this team is players that are confident. Brendan McNamara actually is he's a real free-spirited kid, and I actually get a kick out of him just because he's a lot of fun. But I think another thing, too, that I really hadn't even thought about until you just asked this question, the team that have had success in other sports. Jackson Mitchell is going to be one of the most highly recruited players next year. He's going to get a lot of Division I looks from football. A great season. He was one of the best pitchers in the state last year, and he was a big reason Ridgefield made it to the FCX championship game. So, again, I hadn't really thought about it until just right now, and actually, because I'm about to write something about Ridgefield, but that's probably an intangible factor as well. And the other thing is Andrew McClellan's a great coach, and Ridgefield, over the years and going back to even when Carl Charles was coaching, the one thing, whether they had talent or not, they were always a fundamentally sound team that was always going to minimize turnovers and just play real intelligent basketball, and that's continuing this year.
You look at the conference this year, Dave, and I mean the standings right now, it's very balanced across the board. I think we're seeing a lot of consistent play from the FCX teams through this out-of-conference schedule. Now you're going to start to get into the FCX swing of things. Is there one team in particular outside of Ridgefield, outside of Trinity, who's really stood out and you think has been impressive in the early going that maybe we didn't expect to be here?
Well, right now I would say I think there was a big five to start the season, and I don't think that's changed so far, and that's Danbury, which is the only remaining undefeated team. And we'll get a chance to see them. I know you guys are going to be there, and I will as well tomorrow up at Ridgefield. I think Ward is in the mix with Conway. I think, I would put Conway as one of the elite players in the league. Trinity, Wilton is going to be just like they've been, get up the court, play fast pace, good outside shooters. So I think those are sort of the big five right now. It's really too early. Nobody's really emerged yet, and it's because it's early, and I think because there's so much parity. One team that kind of I'm curious about is Norwalk. They've got Langley, who has gotten off to a really good start for them, Tyreek Langley. Yeah, he hit the game-winning shot. That was a huge win for them against Wilton. Mm-hmm. And he scored 23 against St. Joe's.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, I agree with that. I think you are seeing that parity. Maybe Norwalk sneaking there. We're both a little curious about Trumbull as well. I know we're going to see Trumbull later in the week when they take on Staples. So it's a very interesting start to the year where I think a lot of us expected maybe Trinity to come out of the gates hot and really jump to that way too early conference lead, but I think we're looking at another very entertaining FCX season, to say the least, Kev.
Oh, I fully agree. And you look at tomorrow night's matchup, Dave. You were there Saturday. Duccio Contavio did a nice job in the first half against Brendan McNamara defensively. What does Danbury need to do to shut down McNamara tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'm really curious. Tomorrow's going to really be a good game, and if Ridgefield can get through the stretch of 3 games, and Stanford's sort of been a sleeper team, that at least a preseason sleeper, which we didn't know too much about, and so far they've struggled a little bit. That may change, but Danbury is a team that is really, really strong. Has been playing well, and they, depending on what happens tomorrow, may end up emerging as the favorite. Everybody's been high on Trinity, and again, Trinity's talented, but they need to get better point guard play, and again, they just need to be on the same page all the time. And Dimitri Moyes, he's sort of the X factor to me. There are games he plays really well, and there are games he disappears a little bit. And he played 2 great games last week, and they won one and lost one. And he scored 26 against Ridgefield. And if you had told me beforehand Moyes was going to score 26 against Ridgefield, I would have said Trinity's going to win the game.
I think that's exactly right. So, I mean, I agree. Ridgefield playing well, and they're the conference champions until they get knocked off, come the end of February, early March. Denali Burton, Brendan McNamara tomorrow down low. That'll be an interesting matchup there. But, people are not appreciating, Dave, how much that this Danbury roster did bring back. And I just think they're a motivated group. They could put themselves really at the forefront of this conference with a win tomorrow night.
Oh, I agree 100%. It's just sort of hard for me just because I haven't seen Danbury yet, but just looking at their personnel, they've got good inside strength. They can shoot the ball well. They handle the ball well. I'm not quite sure. I'm uninformed right now in terms of how their depth is. I've just been going through looking at box scores, so that's one thing I'd be curious about. But if it turns out in another week or so that Danbury is the front runner, I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think coming into the season, everybody sort of had, and all the coaches, I got preview information back. Almost everyone had either Danbury or Trinity 1-2 in some configuration. But I think Danbury can end up being a front runner. I'm still curious about Wilton again because they have so many shooters back. I thought they were really going to come down a little bit, but Scott Cunningham has stepped up for them. He's been playing really, really well. And they have Antonio Brancato, the transfer from Ward. So that's another team, too. It's kind of funny. It looks like the balance of power right now, maybe in the north part of the FCX with Wilton, Danbury, and Ridgefield.
Wow. It'll definitely be a lot of fun down the stretch. Dave, we want to thank you for taking time with us this afternoon. Always fun talking shop. We're looking forward to seeing you tomorrow night. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot, guys, for having me. Always a lot of fun.
All right, that was Dave Rudin of the Rudin Report. We are going to take a break on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, though, we've got our first Winter Season Athlete of the Week nominees. That's next on the HAN Network.
Well, there's still a bite out on the water. Most anglers have decided to stow the gear for the winter. Just because Mother Nature isn't cooperating doesn't mean you can't see the latest models of all your favorite gear. With 2 convenient locations, it couldn't be easier to get your fix of summer. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, or on the web, dockshop.com.
At Rings End, we say it's time to re-love your home. Time to refresh and reinvigorate the way you live. And whether you're redoing something big or small, remember the letters RE stand for Rings End. We're the new model in home remodeling.
At Budget Blinds, we're in business to frame the light, the day, and the night. So we give you an exclusive combination of high style, expert service, our no surprises pricing, and our no questions asked warranty. We believe that everyone, at every budget, deserves style and service. Isn't that a beautiful place to be?
Welcome back to Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network. Thanks again to Dave Rudin of the Rudin Report. Always fun catching up, and we're going to get our first, really get going with our basketball coverage this season. Obviously, we've seen Darien and Greenwich already on the boys' side, but now we'll hit, I think, 3 or 4 games in the next 2 weeks. So we'll have a good understanding of where this conference sits after these next few days.
Yeah, you look at tomorrow night's matchup, Thursday's matchup, you got Trumbull Staples. We're going to see 4 teams this week who I think are extremely strong. You look at tomorrow night's matchup is going to be a fun one. Danbury Richfield get to relive that rivalry a little bit at the Tigers' Den. And then Thursday you get a great matchup at Trumbull, which is also a hostile environment. Staples comes to town. 2 really strong basketball games this week, so I'm looking forward to getting things going, not just on the boys' side, but the girls' side as well. There's going to be some great games down the stretch.
All right, well, let's switch gears now. We're going to take a look at our first Athlete of the Week nominees for the winter season. We have 8 nominees to start out in week number 1. And let's go with the Trumbull boys basketball team and the captain, Tamon Williams, scoring 29 points on 10 baskets, 3 of them from behind the arc, and 6 for 6 at the free throw line, leading Trumbull past Stanford, 73-57 on Saturday. The Eagles also topped Darien, 76-59 Wednesday. Williams had 27 points in that game.
And on the girls' side, we have Olivia Parisi from Ward Basketball. Parisi balanced out her 10-point performance with 12 rebounds and 8 assists for
Kev,
Ward.
I'm sorry, I got to stop you there.
Oh.
That is not one of our nominees. We're actually going to go with Aisling McGuire of the Trumbull girls basketball team. She went for 11 points as the unbeaten Eagles got a 48-37 win over Stanford on Saturday. She added 9 points then on Wednesday when Trumbull won 49-41 versus Darien. All right, let's go back to the boys' side, and our next nominee will be from Norwalk High, the aforementioned by Dave Rudin, Tyreek Langley. Langley scored 23 points when the Bears defeated St. Joe's 51-45. Langley was 7 for 10 from the foul line, including 4 of 4 down the stretch for Norwalk, who improved to 3 of 3 on the season. I gave you false information before. I think you're updated now and ready to go.
I'm updated now. From Trinity Catholic girls basketball, we got Caitlin Scott. Scott scored 22 points when Trinity Catholic posted a 63-61 victory over St. Joseph on Wednesday night. Scott had 8 baskets, 2 being 3-pointers.
All right, let's go with Jordan Brown of the Danbury boys basketball squad, scoring 19 points, defeating Ludlow 70-51 as the Hatters remain unbeaten. 5 of Brown's 7 baskets were from behind the 3-point arc.
And we'll keep things with Ludlow girls basketball. Paige O'Connell. O'Connell scored 15 points for Ludlow when the Falcons turned back Brian McMahon 44-23 on Wednesday night.
No shocker here, our final male nominee, the captain of the defending conference champion Ridgefield Tigers, Brendan McNamara, hitting a mid-range jump shot with 5 seconds left in overtime, lifting the Tigers to that 64-63 victory over Trinity Catholic. McNamara would finish with 18 after scoring 29 earlier in the week. Tigers 4-2 on the season, 3-0 in the FCX. Kev, our final nominee.
I'm going to head down Route 7 down to the old rival at Wilton High School. We got Wilton girls basketball, Alexa Hearn. Hearn had 10 points to lead the Warriors in scoring, going 3 for 4 from beyond the arc in Wilton's 53-37 victory over New Canaan. The Warriors now improve to 5-1 on the season.
Those are your nominees for week number 1. The Athlete of the Week poll will be up at 3 o'clock this afternoon on your HAN Network website. You can find it on Twitter as well. Make sure you get on and vote. It'll be open until Sunday night at 11:59. We'll reveal the results of our Week 1 winners next Monday, Martin Luther King Day, coffee break at 11 a.m. It's a special coffee break. Kev and I are hosting, no Kate,
Ayo.
on duty that day. We're going to take a second break here on Nutmeg Sports. When we get back, we're going to look back at some of the action from this past weekend, get you ready for what's coming up ahead. That's all next on the HAN Network.
We know it's your busy season, and that's why Walter Stewart's Market is here to make things easy by offering the best of autumn under one roof. Walter Stewart's Market is your local one-stop fall shop. There are so many seasonal flavors to savor, and Stewart's has them all, from Blue Jay Orchard's local cider donuts to Vermont Farmstead cheddar and all of your favorite varieties of local apples and pears. Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, and find us at stewartsmarket.com.
Want a new experience in car buying? No aggravation, no confrontation, just answers to all your questions. SCAP Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. Car buying the way you want it to be. With one of the largest selections of new 2- and 4-door Jeep Wranglers available, we are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Family owned and operated for over 50 years. Call, click, or stop in today. Save thousands at the 2018 Auto Show event and start something new sales event. Now through January 31st.
At Galt, we always put you first. As your full-service home heating partner, we provide expert delivery, installation, and maintenance for all your heating needs with knowledgeable, friendly professionals that give you peace of mind 24/7. Galt Family Companies, you first since 1863.
If you've ever thought about owning a motor coach or learning about what it's like to travel the open road in superior style and comfort, then contact Dave's RV Center in Danbury, Connecticut. Offering the best quality Class A motorhomes from Newmar, travel trailers and fifth wheel lines from Surveyor, and a toy hauler line from Work and Play. Choose from Newmar's Gas Line, Bay Star and Canyon Star, or from Newmar's Diesel Line, Ventana and Dutch Star. And with unparalleled service and maintenance, Dave's RV is committed to keeping you and your motor coach safely on the road and enjoying it to the fullest. Stop by their showroom, 2 Industrial Plaza Road, Danbury, Connecticut, or call 877-483-3866.
Had a sports injury or slip and fall that needs immediate care? Coastal Orthopedics Walk-In Urgent Care gives you direct access to orthopedic specialists fast without an appointment. Biking, golf, tennis, soccer, whatever the sports injury is, sprain or fracture, Coastal Orthopedics Walk-In Urgent Care can help. Open 7 days a week now at 3 locations. The iPark Building at 761 Main Avenue, Norwalk, 36 Old Kings Highway South in Darien, or in the Westport Medical Center at 323 Riverside Avenue, Westport. Go to coastalorthoct.com. Like them on Facebook.
Back on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network, Frank Granito and Kevin Coleman in studio today, looking back on this past weekend of FCX action. Want to start with girls hoops. We had a rematch of last year's championship game, and the result not that much different the second time around. Stanford picking up the victory, Trumbull picking up the victory, 46-37. And before I can get tongue-tied anymore, Kevin, let me send it over to you. Looking at this game, it was very balanced, I thought, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw this as a late meeting in the FCX tournament again.
I think these two teams are certainly going to meet again in the FCX postseason because it's so strong. And yes, you look at Trumbull and you really thought, wow, they're going to lose some key pieces. But I mean, Julie Keckler is just continuing her red-hot start to the year. Good start for her. A really, really nice statement win because I think a lot of people, when they look at that on paper, they expect Stanford to win that game. But man, Trumbull, I'm impressed. I really like the way they're playing. It's the defense too. Coach Tobish, that's one thing that he really emphasizes is team defense, staying low and being aggressive, and that's what's working right now for the Eagles.
One thing I think that is working in the favor of both of these programs right now is the diversity they're getting from their starting lineup. On any given night, you could have one of your 5 starters go off and be the player in that game. Ashley McGuire leads all scorers with 11 in the victory over Stanford. Keckler's right there with 10. We've talked about how good both of them have been early on this season. For Stanford, Lansadell gave you 7 that night. You had Jessica Nacon with 13 points for you. Brooke Kelly earlier in the year had a couple of big performances. Yeah. We know that Kellner is going to get going at some point in time. Any game she's able to go for 15, 20 points. O'Connor, a force down low. Both these sides right now, I just think there's so much depth on these rosters. They're nearly impossible to stop to other teams in the conference. Stanford's struggling a little bit at the moment, and Trumbull is just picking up right where they left off. But I think there's too much experience on both sides where they would be tripped up and miss the FCX tournament or really even stumble in the quarterfinals.
Well, that's why you look at the boys' side, too, for Trinity that we just spoke about with Dave Rudin. I don't think there's any cause for concern just yet for a Trinity team or a Stanford team like this. It's a slow start. There's a lot of experience on both rosters, especially Stanford. This is a loaded senior lineup. And I think these captains, Coach Diane Burns, is really going to lock down, especially this month of January. There's really a lot of important games for the Stanford Black Knights team. They're going to take care of business. It's not an easy schedule to start the year for Stanford. And they know that despite them losing in the FCAC final, they're still a target on their back because they bring back a lot. Kellner is going to get a lot of looks, especially she's going to be doubled up a lot against a lot of good teams, and a lot of teams around the conference are going to give their best effort, not only against Stanford but against Trumbull as well. They know how good those two teams are, so a good early matchup of what we expect to see maybe late in the postseason. So a good result for Trumbull. So that's a really nice win for the Eagles.
On the other side, and the boys' side of things right now, just a couple things worth noting. Kyle Matala and Scott Cunningham each going for 20-plus in Wilton's win over New Canaan as they stay hot early on. We mentioned that Ridgefield win with Trinity Catholic with Dave McMahon, a good win over Greenwich. They had Latrell Stewart and Sherrod Blackwell going for 14 and 13 respectively. Danbury rolling. Trumbull's win against Stanford, that one just stands out to me. 73-57, much wider margin than I would have expected looking at this game originally.
I don't think a lot of people expected Trumbull to put up that many points.
And Stanford's playing well, mind you.
And Dave even mentioned in the first block how not just you and me, Frank, but a lot of people who cover the FCAC who are really follow it really thought Stanford was going to be a sleeper pick. Now I still think they are.
I think they get in the tournament.
I think they get in the tournament. I think for definitely as a 7 or 8 seed. This is a very good Stanford team. So if you can beat Stanford, that's impressive. But don't be surprised if throughout the season, if you're even a team sitting in the top 4. Stanford's a dangerous team to play this year, so you got to look out on the boys' side of basketball.
All right, let's look ahead on our schedule. And tomorrow you've got Danbury and Ridgefield. I think the X factor in this game is actually going to be Denali Burton. Obviously, Brendan McNamara is going to be the popular pick, and he's playing so well right now on such a hot streak. Burton, for me, has the ability to match McNamara point for point. I don't know that he can be stopped offensively if he wants to go to work down in the paint.
I think if you're coming from a fan's point of view, I think you want to see a performance like that between Denali Burton and Brendan McNamara for those two to really go after it and battle it out on both sides of the floor. And I think there's a good chance you're going to see that tomorrow night. I think Javon Hernandez is so key for this Danbury team because you heard Dave mention how Trinity is lacking the point guard position. How important is it to have a point guard who's really able to not only hold the leadership but run the offense? Look at Richfield last year. They had Zach Essenplayer, who I thought a key piece for them winning the FSAC championship. Now, Richfield losing Luke McGarity, a sophomore who I think was bound to have a sensational sophomore year. Tough loss. He'll be back, broken thumb, but I think the point guard position of Richfield's a little bit of a question mark right now. Who's going to bring that ball up, run the offense? For Danbury, they have the advantage there because of Javon Hernandez, man. Not just Denali. It's Javon who's able to take over games at times, too. So I'm looking out for Javon Hernandez tomorrow night. I want to see how he does controlling the crowd because we know that Tigers End is going to be pretty rowdy tomorrow night.
It's definitely going to be a lot of fun. Another big game tomorrow night, and I think this one could surprise some people. Trumbull and McMahon. I think I like the Senators in that one. I just think, Trumbull right now, I don't know how battle-tested they are. We're going to see them Thursday night. I think the Senators are going to come in, maybe not getting the respect they deserve for how they're playing at the moment. I think the Senators can pull one on the Eagles tomorrow night.
I don't disagree with you. I think for Trumbull, very good team. They're able to score points, especially inside the paint, but especially from outside. This is a good shooting team. We know how good Tamon Williams is. Latrell Stewart, I want to see how he continues to play throughout this season. A good start for the Senators. This is a key. If they can get a win like this, that's a win you look back on in late February, around that point where you say that was a big win for us to get into the tournament.
And that's exactly it. That's a game that could put McMahon potentially into the 8th spot versus being in the 9. A really fun game coming up on Wednesday night on the network. 6 schools in one game. It'll be Wilton, Norwalk, McMahon versus Stanford, West Hill, Staples in girls hockey. 5:45 from the Terry Connors ice rink. That's going to be a blast. I think that's a really good goalie matchup in that one, too, for both sides. Later this week, we've got Staples and Trumbull Thursday night. Doubleheader on Saturday, a state semifinal rematch when New Canaan hosts Northwest Catholic in hockey. Then we get a rematch of that great outdoor game from December 30th, Greenwich and Darien. Those games at the Darien Ice House, 4 and 6 p.m. So a very busy week coming up, and we've got plenty more loaded in to our January schedule. Thank you again to Dave Rudin for coming on with us. I'm going to hear about that one tomorrow night. For Kevin Coleman, I'm Frank Granito. We'll see you next time on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.